Let's get into it. What a week. Have you heard the good news? Jesus has risen and the Holy Trinity's pronouns are they, them. Easter happened to fall on Transvisibility Day this year, and Republicans lost their goddamn minds, accusing President Biden of forcing Jesus to share his special day with trans people. But sometimes there are just two things that happen to fall on the same day. There are people whose birthday is on 9/11 every year, and you don't hear them complaining about it. Well, you do hear them complaining about it. But in kind of a funny, ironic way. They're like, In reality, Republicans had only the calendar to be mad at. Transgender Day of Visibility is always March 31st, while Easter is observed on the first Sunday after the first full moon of spring. This year, they just happen to line up. I had no idea that Easter falls on the first full moon after the first day of spring, but I'm Jewish. So Republicans should blame the moon. That's what they should do. They just have to blame the moon, like all the liberals who believe in astrology. Nevertheless, Donald Trump kept the outrage flowing at a rally in Green Bay, Wisconsin on Tuesday.
And what the hell was Biden thinking when he declared Easter Sunday to be Trans Visibility Day? Such total disrespect to Christians, and November 5th is going to be called something else. You know, it's going to be called Christian Visibility Day, when Christians turn out in numbers that nobody has ever seen before.
Continued Trump, and we'll have a symbol that everyone can see, a big cross maybe, and we'll light it on fire at night for extra visibility. Hey, why is my whole team running on stage? And the Democrats love fags more than Christ. Hits kept coming. The Daily Caller published an article alleging that the Biden administration had banned religious imagery on eggs used at the White House Easter's festivities on Sunday, which is funny because it's usually conservatives telling liberals what to do with their eggs. Still got it. However, as the White House subsequently pointed out, the ban on religious imagery had been in place for decades. It was the only way to stop Walter Mondale from worshiping the eggs. It's like these people have never heard of a little principle called the separation of church and egg. Anyway, the Daily Caller retracted the article, saying that with additional context, the news value of the article was significantly diminished. Continued the Daily Caller, boy, do we have Easter egg on our face. Oh God, what's happening to us? A retraction and a joke? Who are we? We tried a Beyond Burger and it wasn't that bad. Please, somebody help us. We think we might be bi. The White House thanked the Daily Caller for the retraction, but the whole situation is very confusing. Why is this deeply misleading article about Democrats being anti-Christian busybodies the one that goes too far? It's like if the Riddler called Batman and was like, this riddle is too confusing. Robin is locked under the aqueduct. Thank you for holding me accountable. That's what the Riddler laughs like. Speaking of dying for our sins, at a recent campaign event, Trump issued this prediction/threat.
Because if we don't win on November 5th, I think our country is going to cease to exist. It could be the last election we ever have. I actually mean that.
It reminds me of a terrible game, Peekaboo. You cover your eyes, mommy is gone, poof, no mommy, very sad. It's a very tragic situation, no mommy. But then you uncover your eyes and mommy is back, and she's back better than ever before in the history of this country. If I lose, no country, no mommy. If I win, mommy is back. All right. In New York, Trump came through with the $175 million bond necessary to prevent the state from seizing his assets. Like watching the shittiest person you know land a skateboard trick. The one person you wouldn't mind seeing lose a few teeth, and he got down that banister no problem. The bond payment prevents Attorney General Tish James in the state of New York from collecting the full $454 million until his appeal is resolved, which is tough because she already ordered all the vanity light bulbs for the Trump Tower Drag Queen Institute for abortions and movies with subtitles. In a statement, the Attorney General said she doesn't mind waiting a bit longer to roll around in a big pile of Trump's money like that scene from Indecent Proposal. Meanwhile, Juan Merchan, the judge presiding over Trump's hush money case, rejected Trump's bid to delay the start of the trial until after the Supreme Court rules on his presidential immunity claims in a separate case. Imagine wasting the world's sexiest name on being a trial judge. Juan Merchan. So sexy. Trump was mad, but he relaxed by doing his favorite hobby, looking up the names and home addresses of Juan Merchan's friends and loved ones. Of course, Trump not only works hard to avoid jail time, he also plays hard to avoid any moment of silence into which thoughts might intrude. But how do we understand the mind of Donald Trump? A mystery. How do we coax the inner dialogue of this quiet tower of a man who never reveals his thinking except in his nonstop stream of conscious ramblings on social media, in multi-hour campaign speeches on a semi-daily basis? Axios has the answer. His taste in music. This is the actual opening sentence of the piece. Former President Trump thinks, talks, and acts like no other politician in our lifetime. There's a Rosetta Stone that demystifies how his mind works, his closest friends tell us. His Mar-a-Lago Spotify playlist. Among those Trump-approved hits, Phantom of the Opera, Jesus Christ Superstar, and James Brown and Luciano Pavarotti's duet of It's a Man's World, to name a few. You know how the TikTok algorithm reveals you're gay before you do? Donald Trump's playlist reveals that he's a closeted gay Long Island baby boomer who grips the side of his lawn chair a little too tightly whenever the Spanish guy goes by and is riding lawnmower on Tuesday mornings. You missed a spot, says Trump, imagining a completely different life. The former president also sims for Elvis Presley's Suspicious Minds, Hello by Lionel Richie, Guns N' Roses' November Rain, and Sinead O'Connor's Nothing Compares to You. And according to attendees, Trump plays the hits so loudly, attendees have trouble talking. I have to assume it's better to hear Frank Sinatra's My Way at jet engine levels than to perceive even one word spoken by Rudy Giuliani or his no doubt ghastly date. Per one Mar-a-Lago guest, the playlist speaks to how Trump's brain is a set of titanium tubes that constantly pump out the same material, whether it be music or rants about the stolen election. What a unique insight. It's stuff like this you can only learn by watching the most omnipresent reported on man on earth DJ a couple times. And speaking of spinning in circles while the world burns, on Thursday, those crazy centrist kids over at No Labels gave up the ghost on running a third-party presidential ticket, one that many feared could act as a spoiler and help re-elect Donald Trump. No Labels founder Nancy Jacobson said in a statement that the organization won't continue to pursue their dream of a unity ticket, having reached out to 30 potential candidates and been unable to find any viable options. I haven't seen moderates get hammered like this since Joe Manchin's last houseboat orgy. The news comes a week after the death of No Labels founding chair and former Senator Joe Lieberman, who passed away after a fall. Did Jill Biden push Joe Lieberman? Of course not. That's a vile rumor. She wasn't even in Connecticut that night. How could she be? She went to an IMAX 70mm showing of Dune 2 in the nation's capital. And sure, if she had access to, say, a Sikorsky X-2 helicopter, it is possible that she could potentially have walked into the theater, out a side exit, into the waiting helicopter, flown to Connecticut, killed Joe Lieberman, and flown back and then re-entered the theater during the 2-hour and 46-minute runtime, with a little buffer for trailers. And the Sikorsky's X-2 range of 808 miles would be just enough to make the round-trip journey. But then how could she have emerged from the theater with such complete thoughts on Paul Atreides' rise as Muad'Dib and the film's nuanced portrayal of a savior figure? And sure, that night she could barely sleep and wouldn't tell Joe why, as if she felt on some level there was a burden only she could carry, that was her job, that is what is required when you love both your country and your family. But doesn't she have more than enough reason to be a little bit stressed as not only a wife to a president, but as a teacher in a society that will not learn and a mother of daughters in a country that will not protect women? Isn't that explanation enough? Isn't that reason enough for Jill Biden to have nightmares? Don't we all have nightmares? I don't think Jill Biden killed Joe Lieberman. This is not real. And I'm not, people aren't even saying it. So it's like, where is that even coming from? In deeply tragic and awful news on Monday, an Israeli airstrike on a World Central Kitchen convoy in Gaza killed 7 aid workers. Israel was quick to admit the attack had been a mistake, as no Palestinian children were in the convoy. Yeah, it was tough. President Biden said at a White House meeting with Muslim community members Tuesday that the First Lady had been urging him to help protect civilians in Gaza. Joe Biden now faces the question that all wife guys must one day face. Am I enough of a wife guy to end the most devastating humanitarian crisis of our time? On Thursday, the White House issued a statement saying President Biden spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on the phone and conveyed to him that the strikes on humanitarian workers and the overall humanitarian situation are unacceptable. A lot of people don't know this, but acceptable and unacceptable are like flammable and inflammable. They seem like they should be opposites, but they mean the same thing. After the call, Israel did say it would open the Erez crossing in northern Gaza to allow more aid to reach people in need. And that was just a phone call. Imagine if someone shows Biden how to use FaceTime. This week, Florida Supreme Court ruled that the state's 15-week abortion ban passed in 2022 is constitutional, paving the way for a new 6-week ban enacted in 2023 to take effect next month. The court then adjourned because after 5 p.m., the mosquitoes in the courthouse, an unmaintained motel swimming pool, become unbearable. The decision will affect pregnant people across the South who frequently travel to Florida for abortion services from surrounding more restrictive states. Look, I'm not telling Pitbull to start running an illegal fan boat service shepherding the pregnant from Miami to Virginia, but I'm also not saying that. In their ruling, the court also said that a proposed constitutional amendment, which would protect abortion rights before viability at around 24 weeks, could appear on the ballot in November. Abortion rights organizations are hopeful voters will turn out to secure their rights, as they have for similar measures in Ohio and Michigan. So, women of Florida, the ball was back in your court. But also, so is an alligator, and a guy on bath salt, and a trans person hoping to find a bathroom, and a pair of Disney adults, one of whom is asexual and the other of whom is pretending to be asexual because no one else has ever replied before. Florida, you've got this. A new bill introduced in the California Assembly would prevent employers from reaching out to employees outside of work hours, which is completely fine by me because after work hours, my employees seamlessly transition to my best friends. We're all on board with that, right? Yeah, we're good. Best friends. The right to disconnect bill would mean employees are not obligated to respond to calls, texts, or emails outside of work hours and emergencies. For the record, when I reach out to one of my employees at 11 p.m. asking, "Am I a bad person?" that is an emergency. Said State Assemblyman Matt Haney, who submitted the bill, workers shouldn't be punished for not being available 24/7 if they're not being paid for 24 hours of work. Totally. Such a great point. Counterpoint. Sometimes I think of a Rudy Giuliani joke at 10 p.m., and if I don't get validation for it within 4 minutes, the fragile house of cards that is my sense of self will collapse into nothing, and then nobody has a job. This whole thing's a fucking delicate operation. It could crumble at a moment's notice. Speaking of nobody having jobs in the future, New York City launched an AI chatbot to help small businesses navigate the city's bureaucracy. One problem, the chatbot has gone rogue, giving out false information and advising business owners to break the law. Also, it answers every other question with, "Hey, I'm machine learning here." Which isn't that harmful, but pretty annoying. Taylor Swift has officially made it onto the Forbes billionaires list, having become a billionaire in October of last year. Swift plans to celebrate becoming a billionaire in the traditional manner, by going completely insane. New rule. You're not allowed to find love and become a billionaire in the same year. Some of us didn't even find a deodorant we liked. Scientists have excitedly announced that this spring marks the Cicada-geddon, a double dose of cicadas scheduled to emerge after years underground. And you know what that means? The McRib is coming back. Periodic cicadas surface every 13 to 17 years, and because those are prime numbers, 2024 marks the first overlap of these same broods in 221 years. It was 1803, when Thomas Jefferson was president, that both of these cicadas emerged from underground. "I can't believe I have to experience this all over again," said Joe Biden. As a scientist told Fortune magazine, and this is a real quote, "We've got trillions of these amazing living organisms coming out of the earth, climb up of trees, and it's just a unique experience, a sight to behold. It's like an entire alien species living under our feet, and then some prime number years, they come out to say hello." The scientist went on to say, "And before you ask, yes, I've had sex before. With thousands of cicadas." The first kidney transplant patient to receive a kidney from a genetically modified pig has gone home from the hospital 2 weeks after a surgery. When reached for comment, the patient said, "I've never felt better," before trying to convince several journalists to try getting into a warm, safe pile. A truck carrying over 100,000 live salmon crashed in Oregon last week, but most of the fish, this is real, managed to flop into a nearby creek and are expected to migrate to the ocean successfully. A truck crashed, 100,000 salmon spilled out, and they got into a body of water that will take them to the ocean. This is like if I crashed my car, was thrown through the windshield, flew through the air in circles, and landed in a booth in front of a piping hot spinach dip at the Cheesecake Factory. Fucking awesome. And finally, NASA announced the creation of a brand new lunar-based time system used to plan complicated space missions. A lunar-based time system They're calling it months.